Again, I'd like to remind participants the following points. Please wait until I recognize you by name before speaking, and comment should be addressed to the chair. That's more if we have a debate of any sort. Conformément à l'article 108.3G du règlement,
Pursuant to Section 108.3 of the Standing Orders, the committee will begin consideration of the report on cybersecurity of government networks and systems. Fall 2025 reports of the Auditor General of Canada referred to the committee on Tuesday, 21st of October 2025.
The witnesses that I just thanked for coming in today, despite the ugly weather. From the Office of the Auditor General, Andrew Hayes, Deputy Auditor General, nice to see you, along with Jean Goulet, Principal, nice to see you as well, sir, thank you. The Treasury Board Secretariat, Dominique Rochon, Chief Information Officer of Canada, nice to see you. Po T. Duncan, Chief Information Security Officer of the Government of Canada, nice to see you as well. Shared Services Canada, Scott Jones, President. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Good to see you again. Patrice Nadeau, Senior Assistant Deputy Minister, Connectivity and Security Services Branch. Nice to see you as well. And from Communications Security Establishment, Carolyn Xavier, Chief. There you are. Nice to see you again. Yes. And Rajiv Gupta, Head, Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity. Thank you all for coming in today. I suspect we'll be using the full 2 hours today, just given the number of esteemed witnesses we have here today. Mr. Hayes, I think you're going to open things up. Each unit department will have 5 minutes. You'll kick things off, please, for 5 minutes, please.
Bonjour, Monsieur le Président.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to appear before your committee today to discuss our report on the cybersecurity of government networks and systems, which was tabled on the 21st of October 2025. First of all, let me acknowledge that we are on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. I am accompanied by Jean Goulet, the Senior Director who was responsible for the audit.
Let me try and...
The central responsibility for protecting the government's information technology systems and operations rests jointly with the Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat, the Communications Security Establishment Canada, and Shared Services Canada. These organizations work together and with departments and agencies to prevent data theft and limit disruption to the systems that deliver programs and services to Canadians. We have found that although the federal government had tools to protect and defend its networks and systems against cyber attacks, there were significant gaps in cybersecurity defense services, monitoring, and response when attacks occurred.
Only 42% of federal organizations are required by Treasury Board policy to use the cybersecurity defense services offered by Shared Services and the Communications Security Establishment. Others have opted in, but this inconsistent use of services undermines the federal government's ability to protect critical information and manage risks. We also found that coordination among the three organizations was too slow during active cyber attacks. For example, poor coordination delayed the government's response during a major attack 2 years ago. This extended the time during which the attacker had access to public servants' personal information. Protecting federal networks and systems also requires analyzing the potential vulnerabilities of all government IT devices, including laptops, smartphones, and servers. We found that Shared Services and the Communications Security Establishment did not have a comprehensive inventory of all government devices. Without up-to-date information, the federal government risks being unable to quickly respond to a changing cybersecurity landscape. Malicious actions, external events, and attacks targeting the Canadian government's digital systems are frequent and more sophisticated. A coordinated and comprehensive approach to the government's cybersecurity posture, better collaboration, and a current inventory of IT devices are key to safeguarding Canadians' information. Monsieur le Président, je termine.
Mr. Chair, that concludes my opening statement. We look forward to answering questions from committee members. Thank you.
Et merci beaucoup, Monsieur Hayes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hayes, followed by Mr. Rochon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased to speak about the Auditor General's performance audit on the cybersecurity of government networks and systems, which is Report 5 of her Fall 2025 reports. I'm pleased to appear today with my colleagues from Shared Services Canada and the Communications Security Establishment, and indeed the Office of the Auditor General, and in particular, Po T. Duncan from my office, the Government of Canada's Chief Information Security Officer. Mr. Chair, protecting the government's IT infrastructure from vulnerabilities and responding to cybersecurity threats is critical to protecting Canadians' data and the services the Government of Canada provides them. And as Canadians increasingly access government programs and services online, network security is more important than ever. The Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat is named in 2 of the recommendations in the audit. The first such recommendation is that TBS, in consultation with the Communications Security Establishment, ensure that federal organizations implement the Communications Security Establishment's cyber defense sensors on all their IT endpoint devices so that their associated vulnerabilities can be identified and remediated. The second recommendation is that Treasury Board Secretariat, Shared Services Canada, and the Communications Security Establishment reevaluate their cybersecurity incident management practices to enable better coordination and timely access to required critical information when responding to cybersecurity incidents affecting federal organizations. Monsieur le Président, le gouvernement...
Mr. Chair, the government is committed to reducing cybersecurity risks in order to protect its systems and consequently Canadians' information and to ensure the continued delivery of secure and reliable digital services. The TBS welcomes the recommendations made by the Auditor General and will continue its collaboration with Shared Services Canada and the Communications Security Establishment Canada to implement those recommendations. When it comes to evaluating our cybersecurity incident management practices to improve the rapid communication of critical information, the Treasury Board Secretariat, in collaboration with its partners, regularly reviews our operational framework known as the Government of Canada Cybersecurity Event Management Plan. Lessons learned from cyber simulation exercises, also known as tabletop exercises, have enabled the TBS to identify improvements that are then applied to the plan to ensure its effectiveness. The Government of Canada, like all public and private sector organizations, is facing ongoing and evolving cyber threats. In order to maintain a strong cyber defense posture, the Treasury Board Secretariat, in consultation with the Communications Security Establishment Canada, will work with federal organizations to ensure that the establishment's defense sensors are installed on all endpoint devices, be they laptop servers or workstations. We will achieve this in part through a tool that quickly identifies IT endpoints where no sensors are deployed. This will subsequently enable us to detect, assess, and prioritize vulnerabilities to be corrected on IT devices in government networks.
To enhance the government's cybersecurity, Budget 2024 provided $11.1 million over 3 years, starting in 2024-2025, for the Treasury Board Secretariat to begin implementing a whole-of-government cybersecurity strategy. This included measures to support the rapid identification, assessment, and management of vulnerabilities across the enterprise, the formation of a purple team that will emulate techniques used by malicious threat actors to proactively test and audit any security gaps, and the creation of a program to improve cyber assurance and risk evaluation for the Government of Canada enterprise. Mr. Chair, network cybersecurity is vital for the government to protect Canadians' data and services, ensure national security, maintain economic prosperity, and uphold public trust in an increasingly digital world. We agree with the Auditor General's recommendations and, along with our partners, are taking action to address her concerns. Thank you, and following my colleague's opening remarks, I will welcome the committee members' questions.
Thank you very much. Up next, Mr. Jones, please, for 5 minutes.
Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for this opportunity to discuss the Auditor General's report on the cybersecurity of government networks and systems. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. I'm accompanied today by Patrice Nadeau, Senior Assistant Deputy Minister for SSC's Connectivity and Security Services Branch. Shared Services Canada welcomes the Auditor General's findings and is working to address the issues raised. It is important to underline that the Auditor General found that the government had tools in place to protect and defend its networks and that the government's cybersecurity plan was sound and comprehensive. As the provider of IT services to departments and agencies, SSC plays a pivotal role.
About 6.5 trillion cyber threats annually, which is an average of 18 billion a day. This ensures the uninterrupted operation of government services. We do that through a state-of-the-art enterprise infrastructure and modern commercial cybersecurity solutions that defend government systems against a wide range of cyber threats. SSC uses multiple layers of defense and prevention, including firewalls, network defenses, anti-denial of service measures, antivirus and anti-malware tools, encryption, virtual private networking, and robust identification and authentication services. We have an excellent partnership with our colleagues at the Treasury Board Secretariat and the Communications Security Establishment. This collaboration is absolutely vital, as the Auditor General underscored, and we continue to improve it. We regularly conduct postmortems on cyber events to identify ways we can always do better. Together, SSC and CSE's Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity provide sophisticated cyber defenses that go beyond commercial capabilities. Our work offers one of the most sophisticated cyber defenses in the world. Cybersecurity is a space that is evolving fast, and we work continuously to keep on top of it. That said, there is more to do, as the Auditor General rightfully underscored. We share the Auditor General's concerns about organizations that are outside of SSC's enterprise internet service. As the threat environment changes rapidly, that is a model that clearly needs to evolve. This is why SSC is now working to provide connectivity and security services to 43 small departments and agencies, and is on track to complete this work by the end of March 2027. The Auditor General also highlighted a project called Endpoint Visibility and Awareness Security, or EVAS for short. This is one of the tools SSC is adding to its cybersecurity environment. EVAS will automatically identify network-connected endpoints, such as desktops and servers, and verify they meet security requirements. Unlike our semi-manual system, EVAS is automated and enables real-time vulnerability and impact assessments. EVAS will also provide automated response to cyber events. While there were delays to this project, our organization has learned a number of lessons. This project has turned the corner, and since implementation began in July of 2025, over 36,000 deployments have been completed. The Auditor General also highlighted our project to develop a Security Information and Event Management System, or SIM for short. SIEM, some people pronounce it. I want to assure you that we are on track to award a competitive contract for this project in early 2026. Further, SSC is currently operating an interim SIM capability, which allows SSC and our partners at the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity to manage priority needs and supports an effective response to cyber threats. Mr. Chair, since SSC's creation, we have shifted the government's business model from one that is siloed and decentralized to a government-wide enterprise approach. This not only reduces costs, but strengthens overall security government of Canada-wide. It is easier to monitor, patch, and fix one system than 45 separate ones. And it is easier to invest in one system than 45 separate ones. We are not done. SSC is streamlining the management of devices and software by centralizing procurement and operations. This achieves considerable efficiencies and reduces the potential for inconsistencies in security policies. We're also continuing to reduce duplication by replacing additional siloed back-office tools with standard government-wide tools. Legacy systems are also more vulnerable to cyber threats, as was pointed out in another Auditor General review. Moving off legacy systems improves our cybersecurity posture. En bref, tout ce que nous faisons pour consolider et moderniser.
In short, everything we do to consolidate and modernize IT systems is essential to improving cybersecurity. Mr. Chair, reports from the Auditor General are also an important tool to hold us accountable and allow us to improve our operations. Cybersecurity is an evolving field with actors that don't follow our rules. Continuous improvements are key to protecting the government's IT systems. Thank you once again for the opportunity to speak on this important file, and I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you. We thank you, Mr. Jones. Ms. Xavier, you have 5 minutes.
Chair and members of the committee, bon matin, Monsieur le
We're just letting
Président.
everybody speak.
Good morning, Chair.
Right, we're going to get to
Mr.
questions at this
Chair
point.
and members of the committee. Thank you for inviting me to discuss the Auditor General's report on the cybersecurity networks.
And I am the Chief of the Communications Security Establishment, also known as CSE. And I'm joined today by Rajiv Gupta, head of the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, which is also known as the Cyber Centre, which forms an integral part of CSE. Nous sommes heureux de témoigner au cours.
We are pleased to appear alongside our colleagues from the Treasury Board Secretariat and Shared Services Canada, with whom we work closely on cyber security issues.
A brief overview of CSC and our Cyber Centre, and then share how we are responding to an increasingly complex threat landscape, on one that includes cyber threats, risks to economic security, violent extremism, foreign interference, disinformation campaigns, and more. Avant de commencer, je veux aussi souligner.
Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that we are on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. We acknowledge that this nation has been on this land since time immemorial. CSE is an autonomous organization and one of the Canadian organizations or agencies responsible for cybersecurity and intelligence.
Foreign signals intelligence on a wide range of threats to help the Government of Canada make informed decisions and safeguard Canada's interests while strictly following Canadian law and privacy standards. We also defend Government of Canada networks and systems of national importance against malicious cyber activity targeting Canada's digital infrastructure. Through the Cyber Centre, we serve as the national and technical authority for cybersecurity, providing a single, trusted source of expert advice and guidance for Canadians and organizations across the country. By integrating cybersecurity, signals intelligence, foreign cyber operations, CSC is uniquely positioned to strengthen Canada's overall defence and security. The integrity of Canada's cyberspace is foundational to our country's future. It underpins our digital economy, protects personal safety, and strengthens national resilience. In 2024 to 2025, CSC produced more than 3,300 foreign intelligence reports and responded to over 2,500 cyber incidents affecting federal institutions and critical infrastructure partners. We also issued over 330 pre-ransomware notifications to more than 300 Canadian organizations, early warnings that help prevent serious harm. As the threat landscape evolves, so do we. Our world-recognized Cyber Defense Sensor Program provides real-time detection of malicious cyber activity across Government of Canada networks and cloud environments. This program is available to all federal departments and agencies and Crown corporations upon request, and enables our experts to block and neutralize threats before they cause harm. While many federal organizations manage their own IT infrastructure, they can leverage CSC's sensor program and the Cyber Centre's expert guidance to strengthen their defenses. Today, most federal institutions use at least one of our sensors. We also continue to deepen our engagement with Crown corporations, critical infrastructure operators, and provincial and territorial partners. CSC welcomes the Auditor General's report and supports its recommendations, particularly those aimed at strengthening sensor deployment and improving incident management coordination. As my colleagues have highlighted, we are working closely together to expand the deployment of cyber defense sensors across federal networks and refine incident response protocols. Ces conclusions s'appuient sur les progrès importants.
These efforts build on significant progress already made to modernize and secure the digital systems that deliver essential services to Canadians. Cybersecurity is a shared responsibility, and collaboration remains at the heart of our approach. Mr. Chair, members of the committee, the threat environment is dynamic, but our commitment is unwavering. Together with our partners, we will continue to protect Government of Canada systems, Canada's critical infrastructure, and digital systems, ensuring Canadians can rely on secure and trusted services. Once again, thank you very much for this opportunity to appear before the committee. We look forward to answering.
Look forward to continued dialogue. Merci.
Thank you all very much. I'll now begin our first round of questions, which will consist of 3 members, 6 minutes each. Ms. Kuzi, you'll kick us off this year. Thank you.
Earlier this month, the Prime Minister announced a new Canada-China strategic partnership. On many fronts, this concerns me, but specific to this meeting, I'm concerned about Canada's cybersecurity and the protection of our private information. In 2024, I was informed by IPAC through the FBI that I had been the target of a cyber attack orchestrated by the PRC. I had been targeted because of my status as a Member of Parliament, and as the Canadian government begins a new economic relationship with the PRC, I'm concerned with how our government assesses these new strategic partnerships with non-democracies on the world stage. Madame Xavier, can you please share with this committee what measures your agencies and departments are taking to ensure the cybersecurity and protection of sensitive data as we enter new agreements with governments like the PRC?
Thank you for the question. So as mentioned in my opening remarks, CSC holds multiple mandates within one agency. One being the foreign intelligence collection that we do to be able to ensure that decision makers have the information they require to make decisions. And that is something we've been doing for almost 80 years. The other part of our mandate is the cybersecurity or cyber defense part of our mandate. And one other part of our mandate is the foreign cyber operations mandate. And having all those elements within one agency really help us to ensure that what we learn from a foreign intelligence SIGINT collection is able to be used in the defense of Canada and vice versa. All the billions of incidents that we protect against in the defense of Canada allows us to learn about threat actors that may have potential interests in Canada. And that then feeds what we can do on the foreign intelligence part of the mandate. In addition to that, in foreign cyber operations, we're able to take actions in cyberspace, in the foreign cyberspace, to be able to ensure that we're continuing to protect Canada. So we operate under cabinet-approved intelligence priorities, which are reviews on a regular basis. And as it is now, our mandate includes protecting Canada's critical infrastructure, democratic institutions, and whether it's nation states or cyber criminals, that is part of the mandate that we operate on a regular basis, 24/7, 365 days of the year. And so we remain committed to being to ensure that we do our job effectively. I am pleased and proud of the fact that we lead an organization that puts out world-class cyber defense. And the work that we do in collection with our partners, both at Treasury Board and SSC, allows us to continue to protect Government of Canada systems.
Thank you very much for that extensive answer. You mentioned that you have protected billions of negative interactions, negative interceptions. However, it is apparent to me by the experience that I had, as well as several others, members of Parliament, that the most cunning of evil operators are still able to penetrate the system, which is very concerning to me. You had mentioned the implication of other decision makers. Are there ministers who have given you this direction specifically, and who would those ministers be, please?
So again, thank you for the opportunity to clarify. So our intelligence priorities are driven by the Cabinet of the Government of Canada, and our intelligence priorities actually—
Which Cabinet members, please?
The full Cabinet is who endorses the intelligence priorities of the Government of Canada.
But who provides the direction, please?
The full Cabinet provides a direction led by the Prime Minister of the country. And as a result, what we've done as well is we've published the intelligence priorities so that Canadians, have an opportunity to understand what are the priorities that we have. And the priorities are fairly broad, and we are able to work to those priorities in the work that we do.
Thank you very much, Madame Xavier. I'm not getting a lot of good, clear information in terms of what those priorities are and how they are implemented, but thank you. Mr. Hayes, your report from October is not the first to focus on cybersecurity, and as the importance of technology continues to grow, I'm sure it will not be the last, unfortunately. Do you believe hostile actors like the PRC could attempt to act on the security gaps that you mention within this report?
Thank you. There's no doubt that the government faces attacks every day. Indeed, they're stopping billions and trillions every year. So I think that the message from our report is that vigilance and rigor need to be at the top of the mind of every government organization. To us, one of the big findings in our report is that not every federal organization is required to use the services that shared services and communication security establishment provide. That is, in our view, a missed opportunity.
Thank you for that. Monsieur Rochon, over the past year, the government has placed a focus on artificial intelligence and the use of it both within and outside of government. With AI comes a world of opportunity, but also a world of unknowns. How can Canadians be confident their confidential information will be secure and private if your department can't even get federal organizations to follow the existing rules and policies surrounding cybersecurity?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. Sorry about let me just say the challenge remains that the Financial Administration Act, Section 7, grants Treasury Board authority to apply general administrative policies such as the policy on government security, the policy on service and digital, and those policies are applicable to departments and agencies that fall according to a certain schedule. So that's how the legislative framework is set up, and therefore we cannot impose on agents of Parliament or Crown corporations.
That's not very efficient or effective if you can't impose.
Ms. Kuzi, I'm afraid that is your time. We will certainly come back to you.
Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Chair. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Suivant. Up next is Ms. Yip. You have the floor for 6 minutes, please.
Okay. As I said in chat, sorry, my mic's a bit loud there. As I said in chat, we're going to switch over to the Justice Committee because I want to see what's going on there. And we're not really missing much with Yippies. Ms. Yip is now going, so we don't need to listen to that. Let me turn this up a bit. Is there no audio?
Use
there we go.
that for further information. A few comments for the benefit of witnesses and members. Please wait till I record these so you know all these rules. This meeting number 14 is close to becoming one of the longest meetings in parliamentary history, so you know all the rules. Please wait before you start speaking until you've been recognized by the chair. For those on Zoom, you've got the buttons and translation devices. All comments should be made through the chair. All right. And I'd like to welcome our witnesses back again. And thank you for what has been great patience and continues to be great patience. But you are a valuable resource to all members of the committee here, and I know I'm speaking on behalf of everybody. We really appreciate it. So thank you. We have Kristen Alley, who's the manager of Senior Counsel Criminal Law Policy, Joanna Wells, Senior Counsel Criminal Law Policy Section, and Marianne Brees, Counsel Family Law or Criminal Law Policy Section. Okay, so we suspended the meeting in December, on December the 11th, and we were debating Mr. Brock's sub-amendment to Mr. Lawton's amendment, which was CPC 8.1. I still have a speaker's list from December the 11th, which I will pick up on. Some of the people who are on that list are not here today. Some are. Okay, and the rest is from you. Okay, all right, so here we go. So I will, just so people know, for people here who's on the speaker list, I have Mr. Jennis, Mr. Fortin, and then Mr. Housefather. Mr. Baber is here, and then I think that's it. Sorry?
Lawton.
Oh, Mr. Lawton, you want on the list. No, I was just going through his, you want on the list. Okay, all right. Okay.
Chair, just point of order. I think some of our regular members, I'd like them to speak before me, so if you don't mind just striking me and putting me to the bottom, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Done. Okay, well, that means that Mr. Fortin has the floor.
Just to clarify, Mr. Chairman, when we left off, we were on Mr. Brock's amendment. CPC 8.1. Mr. Chairman, our committee has a lot of work. Important bills are waiting, C14, C9, C16. As far as I'm concerned, we've already lost far too much time, and I'm convinced that everyone around the table would like us to move forward so that by the end of the spring session, we will have gone through all the other important bills which we will need to review. We've already adopted, before Christmas, the amendment moved by the Bloc on religious exemptions for hate speech. And now the motion, which our Conservative colleagues are tabling, are actually contrary to the motion that was adopted. CPC 8.1 says the current article shall not affect freedom of expression or freedom of religion, which is already included in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and in no way could our committee say the opposite than what is contained in that charter. What is in the charter will remain. So I don't see what the usefulness is of repeating what is already in a charter. However, Mr. Brock's amendment would replace freedom of expression or freedom of religion with freedom of conscience and religion, freedom of thought, belief, opinion, and expression, including freedom of the press and other media of communication, freedom of peaceful assembly, and freedom of association. This amendment could be interpreted as already existing in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, or to frame what has already been accomplished by the committee in previous amendments, including the one for religious exceptions contained in the Criminal Code. So I don't see what the usefulness or the relevance is for this amendment, Mr. Chair. I feel that we should not repeat what has already been done, and we have a criminal code which is clear and which is understandable. We do not want to create any legislation that applies to one religious community and have another bill that applies to another one. I like what we've done so far with Bill C9, and the amendment proposed by our Conservative colleague seems to me useless because we already have these rights enshrined in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, or it might be an attempt to undermine what was done before, which, in my view, would be deplorable. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Fortin. Okay, now we have Mr. Housefather.
Very much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. First of all, I want to wish everybody on the committee a Happy New Year, and I look forward to working with all of you on 3 very important justice bills that I think we should all send back to the House as quickly as possible. And certainly I will support sending any bill back to the House in the form that it came to the committee in, if that happens. But what I think we need to do now is try to actually get through C9, which to me is an incredibly important bill. And since this committee
Mr. Housefather, sorry, apparently interpretation is not working, so
okay.
if you could just hold on.
Je vais arrêter.
Oh, tech issues? Yeah, right.
OK. Est-ce que je devrais tester ça? Ou est-ce que je devrais juste faire l'interprétation moi-même, Monsieur le Président? Je peux le faire.
I can speak the other language myself if you want, Mr. Chair. Would that violate union rules?
En anglais ou en français, Monsieur Housefather, je dirais même que je vous encourage à...
Well, Mr. Housefather, I would encourage you to speak French, but to do interpretation, frankly, that's not our job.
Try seeing if it works.
If the English to French was working.
Okay, so testing, is the English to French working? Are you guys getting translation?
La traduction française fonctionne, Monsieur le Président.
It's working?
The French interpretation does work.
All right, so go ahead, Mr. Housefather. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, so since our committee last met, we had a mass shooting at Bondi Beach in Australia. We had 15 people murdered because they were attending a Hanukkah celebration on a beach. It was a tragedy, and I think all members of the committee would join me in sending our thoughts and our prayers to all the people of Australia, and particularly the Jewish community worldwide that was deeply impacted by this tragedy. And we saw what that shooting caused to happen in Australia, which is that a royal commission has been set up on anti-Semitism, and laws were passed by Parliament on gun control and on hate. And in fact, one of those laws proposed by the government of Australia and eventually adopted by Parliament was similar to things in the Combating Hate Act. And in Canada, we were being proactive. We were trying to pass these laws that police say will give them more tools before such a tragedy could occur, which theoretically could occur anywhere in the world. And there is great danger that tragedies like that could occur in any place in the Western world. We need to do our best to have criminal laws to give police the tools and intelligence services the tools to stop that from happening. Ironically, Mr. Chair, one of the provisions that was contested in the law in Australia was that Australia's Labor government proposed a hate exemption based on religious conviction that was similar to what we currently have in the criminal law in Canada. And ironically enough, the conservative parties in Australia, the Liberal Party and the National Party, argued that that exemption made the law useless. It's exactly the opposite argument that our colleagues are bringing here in Canada, that are saying that we need this exemption. In Australia, our Conservative Party said the opposite. So, look, I don't think taking out this exemption is a panacea, nor do I think having this exemption to allow somebody who has already promoted hate and charged with promoting hate having a defense that has never been successful in Canadian history means a lot either. But the claims that have been made, Mr. Chair, and this is why I want to get to the amendment and the sub-amendment, but I want to start with the larger principle. The claims that have been made that people will no longer be able to preach the Bible or the Torah or the Quran or any religious text without being charged with hate speech is absurd and doesn't deserve the credence that is being given to it. I can't even believe these arguments are being made. This was a defense in the law if you have already been charged with the already high threshold of promoting hate against an identifiable group. And then you were able to claim that you did that hate, that horrible hate, based on sincere religious conviction. I don't know of any religion in the country that promotes in their mainstream religion that kind of hate. So taking this out should be not a problem. I don't think it makes a great difference, but it shouldn't be a problem. And I wanted, Mr. Speaker, to put on record the op-ed written by Joseph A. Newberger, who's a criminal lawyer and the chair of the Canadian Jewish Law Association, that was written in the Toronto Sun. So I'm going to read that for the record. Claims that C9, the Combating Hate Act, threatens religious freedom in Canada are false. They are not supported by the bill itself, by the Constitution, or by decades of court decisions. More than that, the claim that Bill C9 undermines religious freedom is not a matter of interpretation or reasonable disagreement. It is misinformation. Religious freedom is explicitly protected by Section 2A of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and has been repeatedly affirmed by Canadian courts as a core constitutional guarantee. Nothing in Bill C-9 amends, limits, or conditions that protection. The bill does not interfere with worship, belief, religious teaching, sermons, or doctrine. To suggest otherwise is to assert a legal effect that simply does not exist. What is C-9? Bill C-9 is proposed federal legislation that updates part of the criminal code dealing with hate-motivated conduct, hate propaganda, and the public promotion of terrorism. Its purpose is limited and clear: to address conduct that causes serious harm, including the glorification of terrorist groups and extreme hatred directed at identifiable communities. It does not regulate belief, worship, sermons, or religious teaching. It does not criminalize disagreement or political debate. Religious freedom in Canada is firmly protected by the Charter. That protection is well established and robust. Bill C-9 does not weaken it. What the Charter does not protect, because it never has, are threats, intimidation, or the deliberate promotion of violence or terrorism. Canadian constitutional law has always distinguished itself between protected belief and unprotected conduct, and Bill C-9 operates squarely within that settled framework. I write as a criminal lawyer with more than 32 years of experience, and as the chair of the Canadian Jewish Law Association. Since October 7, 2023, we have worked directly with students, professionals, and community members, Jewish and non-Jewish, who have faced harassment, exclusion, and intimidation. We have also contributed to anti-Semitism training for police and are preparing similar work with judges. The pattern is consistent. When hateful conduct is excused or ignored, it escalates. Canadian law already draws a clear line between strong opinions, which are protected, and extreme hatred, which is not. The Supreme Court of Canada made this clear in Regina versus Keekstra, defining hatred as extreme vilification and dehumanization, far removed from criticism or disagreement. Bill C-9 does not lower this threshold, it relies on it. Much of the opposition to the bill rests on a misunderstanding or misrepresentation of free expression and religious liberty. The Charter does not shield conduct that promotes terrorist organizations designated under Canadian law. No democratic society treats the public glorification of terrorism as a protected freedom, religious or otherwise. Another uncomfortable reality is that Canada already has laws to address hate speech, hate crimes, and terrorism, but they are enforced inconsistently. On this, I agree with the author and agree with my Conservative colleagues. That failure has contributed to a loss of civility and restraint, and to the normalization of conduct that targets people based on identity. Jewish Canadians have experienced this acutely, particularly when they are blamed for international events beyond their control, but the consequences affect all communities. Law alone will not eliminate hatred or extremism, but law sets boundaries. It signals what conduct a society will not tolerate. Bill C-9 reflects that responsibility. Bill C-9 provides authorities with additional tools to combat the display of symbols of terrorist entities and will provide additional protections for our most vulnerable religious and educational institutions, including synagogues, schools, and community centers. Bill C-9 is not the only answer to the rise in hate, but it is necessary to not only send a message that hate and anti-Semitism will not be tolerated, but will be prosecuted. I also write as a supporter of political campaigns, including the Conservatives in the last election. And I want to be clear that the real danger is not that religious freedom will be curtailed. The real danger is allowing false claims about religious freedom to obscure the actual purposes and effect of this law, and to prevent Parliament from responding to conduct that undermines safety, dignity, and social cohesion. Read plainly, Bill C-9 respects constitutional freedoms while reaffirming a basic principle. Freedom does not include the right to promote hatred or terror. So, Mr. Chair, I wanted to put that on the record because I believe in C-9 we have a bill that deals with many of the issues that have impacted our communities, particularly my own Jewish community, but other communities in Canada, and will be a positive force to tell law enforcement that we as a federal parliament are sending them a message that we expect the law to be enforced, whether when there are demonstrations in Mr. Baber's riding in Toronto that are entirely unacceptable, that target Jewish communities for absolutely no other reason than they are Jewish, or in other ridings across this country. And I think we all share that objective. So I will now come to the amendment that was proposed by Mr. Lawton and the sub-amendment by Mr. Brock, which I think, again, are misplaced. These are saying that the charter guarantees in Section 2 remain. Well, obviously the charter guarantees in Section 2 remain, but they remain for all parts of the bill, not just the subsection where this charter right is now mentioned. The idea then, to me, would be a complete misinterpretation where somebody could look at this bill and say, oh, does that mean that Parliament intended those charter rights not to apply to the rest of the bill? Or to other laws where we don't expressly reference that Section 2 rights are protected? It doesn't make any sense because charter rights remain protected. We have not used Section 33 in this bill or anywhere else to remove those rights. And to insert them, I believe, for the first time in a bill to say that these rights are not undermined or thwarted would then cause doubt in every other bill and every other provision of the bill if we don't repeat the same message. So I would end my remarks, Mr. Chair, because I strongly support this bill. This bill is really important to me, as are the bills on bail and the bills on giving greater rights to victims and dealing with intimate partner violence. But this bill is really important to me because this bill deals with something that I have requested Parliament do for almost 2 years now in terms of protecting schools and community centers and places of worship and other places occupied by vulnerable communities and by taking actions against people that carry terrorist symbols in demonstrations. And I don't want to just let this bill go and delay it and cause it to disappear off the parliamentary radar because people are misinterpreting or misleading people about what religious rights are or are not included in this bill. So, Mr. Chair, I'm going to fight for this bill. I'm going to fight hard for this bill. And I'm asking my colleagues, if they disagree, that's fine. Let them vote against the parts of the bill they disagree with. Let them vote against the bill if they want, but let this bill go through clause by clause and come back to the House. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Housefather. Okay, next we have Mr. Bauer.
And welcome, everyone, and Happy New Year to all of you. Before I defer to my colleague, MP Larry Brock, I'd like to make a couple of comments with respect to not just what my colleague, Mr. Housefather, just said, but in particular with respect to tomorrow, which is when we mark the 81st anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. And this mark has been designated by the international community as the International Holocaust Remembrance Day. I'll share a personal story that I've previously shared in the provincial legislature. My family is partially from Ukraine and partially from Russia. And my great-great maternal grandparents were Ukrainian Jews from Odessa. And in October of 1941, Joseph and Rosalia Rosenfeld were executed by the Nazis in the courtyard of their Odessa family home. One of the first things my family did when we first visited the Holy Land is my mom went to the Yad Vashem Museum. It's the Holocaust Museum in Jerusalem, and noted the Rosenfeld's name. For many Jews, like myself, the Holocaust is not just an abstract or a theoretical concept. It's a reality that many in my community deal with for many years, and it's very instructive to us in much of what we do. And not just in terms of the welfare and safety and security of the Jewish people, but the welfare and safety of security of all people. When we read about the horrors of what's transpiring in Iran, with reports this morning in the New York, in one of the New York newspapers of a credible report of over 35,000 protesters, of 35,000 Persians killed in the last 2 weeks alone, it is horrifying. And that brings me to the point I want to make, is that too often many in this building, while very well intentioned, and I want to be very, very clear, I respect all of my colleagues, and I never impute any negative intention when it comes to combating hate or anti-Semitism in particular. But regretfully, I have come to believe, witnessing the events of the last couple of years, that when many use the phrase never again, they use it more as a platitude. They don't really mean it. And I would say that might be an allegation that may apply to more than one of the recognized parties. Mr. Housefather was correct by mentioning the weekly events in the riding of York Centre. Specifically my home in North York, about a kilometer from where I live, at the very intersection that my family first dwelled in when we came to Canada, the intersection at Shepherd and Bathurst. And I invite every single member here, every staffer, every official, to come and join me in North York on a Sunday at Shepherd and Bathurst and see what goes on. We're a group of masked men and women. They don't just stand at the northeast corner of the intersection because the police decided that, they're going to segregate both sides. But aside from the fact that they stand at the northeast corner of the intersection, in front of the very building that welcomed me to Canada, and chant incitement to violence every week, chat for intifada every week, encourage people to a violent revolt every week, and seemingly nothing is being done. We had the Director of Legal Services for the NCCM here during hearings on this bill. I think her testimony spoke for itself in terms of the definition of the word intifada and whether she would encourage, some sort of legal action or criminal action with respect to that. This is an organization that received in the last couple of years a considerable amount of money from this Liberal government. We had the Toronto Police. We had the Toronto Police here during the bail hearing who said, look, I'm not sure what the interpretation of the law is. While clearly we all agree that incitement to violence is illegal and that is incitement to violence, but even worse. Every Sunday, they take some time and they walk off Shepherd and Bathurst and they start walking west of Shepherd, on Shepherd, I'm sorry. And sometimes they make a right into the neighborhood of Bathurst Manor, which is where I lived for a number of years and is one of the key neighborhoods that I'm blessed to represent. Probably one of the largest Jewish communities in the country. And these masked thugs, they walk up residential streets next to residential neighborhoods, and they chant incitement to violence, and they're masked. They're clearly denying residents enjoyment of their property. I would suggest respectfully it's at the very least mischief. So I think it's very important, as we discuss these things, to appreciate that, number one, this is very serious for many of my constituents and Canada's Jewish community that numbers at about 350,000. We're nearing, sorry? 403,000. I appreciate my friend's correction. Sorry. There is some disagreement. We are going to mark the International Holocaust Remembrance Day tomorrow, and we're all going to tweet never again. And I would say, I would invite everyone who's unwilling to really implore law enforcement to do the right thing here. Doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on. My constituents right now are threatened in their homes. To say, no, we are not going to tolerate this. We have existing laws on the book. We insist that the Toronto Police Board, that Mayor Olivia Chow enforce the law and protect Toronto's Jewish community. And that when we say never again, we actually mean never again. I'm very grateful to my colleagues for the deference I received here, and I'm going to defer my time to MP Larry Brock.
Thanks, Mr. Baber. I had Mr. Lawton and Mr. Brock. You both sort of put your hand up at the first time. I leave it to you two to decide who goes first. Okay, Mr. Brock.
Thank you, Chair. And much like my colleague, Mr. Baber, my colleague, Mr. Housefather, it's good to be back. Thankful that we are here to study three important bills. I trust everyone had a peaceful and relaxing break. I also want to welcome back the department officials. I know this has been a challenging exercise for you. I'm optimistic that 2026 will usher in a fresh approach to how we get things done here at Justice. As I said, when I first accepted the position of Vice Chair, I think it was obviously it was a different chair at that time, Mr. Chair, but I often said my experience has always been one of deep respect for everyone here at Justice. We deal with extremely important pieces of legislation and policy and tradition, at least from my perspective, going back to September of 2021, has been extremely collaborative. And I'm hoping that that is going to continue. But clearly we're facing an impasse. And it's an impasse that, in my view, should have never come to this. When I listen to the messaging from the government, specifically the messaging from Sean Fraser, Canada's Justice Minister and the Attorney General, he often reflects about the quality of time that he spent engaging with stakeholders, particularly from the Jewish community here in Canada, but other stakeholders, policing, victim advocacy rights, etc., all of which formed, with the direction and the assistance of his department officials, formed the drafting of Bill C-9. And in Bill C-9, as it's currently stated, there was no specific reference to the government intending to remove the religious exemption that has been codified in the Criminal Code of Canada for over 4 decades. No mention at all. No indication in any of the press releases or the technical briefings that parliamentarians receive during the initial debate in the House at second reading. No mention at all from any member of the Liberal Party of Canada that this would be ultimately their stated intention. Now you contrast that to my friend and colleague, Monsieur Fortin, who made it abundantly clear, as did members of the entire Bloc Québécois during debate, but particularly during the meetings that we held on C-9, the witnesses that gave evidence, responded to all questions, and Monsieur Fortin, on a regular and consistent basis, would always seek input from those stakeholders as to their position on the removal of the religious exemption. Now, I may be wrong in this assessment, and if I'm wrong, I will apologize to any particular member of the Liberal Party of Canada, because I've done a number of interviews, I've written a number of articles, I've posted on social media, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. But I don't recall during the meetings that we had on C-9 any particular member, the core Liberal members and their subs from time to time, ever exploring the issue of removing the religious exemption. I could be wrong, but I don't recall that ever being raised by any member of this committee, with the exception of Monsieur Fortin. But then what happened? As we progressed closer and closer to our Christmas break, knowing that we were making progress with respect to clause by clause, But we reached an impasse when we found out, and leaked by the media, that a secretive backroom deal had been brokered by the Liberal Party with the Bloc Québécois to fully support the Bloc's amendment to remove the religious exemption. And critics rightly commented that this was insincere, that this was not about addressing the evils that my colleague Mr. Baber so eloquently and correctly put on record that has been plaguing our country for 2+ years under the auspices of supporting the Palestinian people. So critics said this had all to do with politics as opposed to what is in the best interests of Canadians. And I 100% agree with Mr. Baber's assessment that, I know he didn't use these words, but these are my words, that C9 in its entirety was completely redundant. Redundant in the sense that we've had hate laws codified in the Criminal Code of Canada for over 4 decades. So this was not an issue of police lacking resources, police lacking tools. This was a political decision by various police services on their own or under the direction of their municipal leaders to not do their damn job. And that job, they were sworn to uphold every single law in the 1,000-page Criminal Code of Canada. And example after example, story after story, we have witnessed right across this country examples of criminal activity that should have resulted in charges being laid against these thugs. But they weren't. Inexcusable as to why they weren't. In fact, I'm not going to identify the city. I'm not going to out the municipal leaders. I'm certainly not going to out the provincial, the municipal police service. But examples from that particular municipality rocked me to the core when I learned that the direction given by the municipal leaders to that municipal police service was simply to act as peacekeepers. Sworn, armed peacekeepers, not to make any arrests. And I heard examples in that particular city of threats being uttered, physical assaults taking place, pushing and shoving and spitting at Jewish individuals who simply were there to enjoy their synagogue or to enjoy their place of recreation, free of any abuse and intimidation and harm, and the police dropped the ball. So that's what this issue really is. And I'm glad, Mr. Housefather, you raised the issue of the events in Australia. It rocked the conscience of anyone who deeply cares about this issue. That was a horrific, horrific experience. And I can only surmise that perhaps the uniqueness of Canada's law enforcement not interpreting the criminal code in a black versus white lens, but a gray lens, is what has caused this hate to go unchecked. And when it goes unchecked, Mr. Chair, it emboldens the participants It gives them immunity. I can scream and call for intifada, as they did at the Eaton Centre on Boxing Day. Not in a public square, in a private business, private center. And again, police were there, and I don't know if there were any arrests, but certainly not enough. Let's put it that way. And that's why the conscience of Canadians were shocked, again, that that was allowed to happen. So I appreciate the passion of everyone's argument, but we also need to remember that we've got two other pressing pieces of legislation, 14 and now 16, which is set to debate today for the first time. But in framing my argument in support of prioritizing 14, I want to reiterate the words of the Prime Minister today in Ottawa. I quote, "From tougher bail, tougher sentencing, protecting younger Canadians from online harm, protecting people who go their place of worship or their community centre, protecting them for harassment, all of that crime legislation is being held up." Not held up by the Conservative Party of Canada, Mr. Chair, and then later, House Leader McKinnon indicates to us, I'm just trying to find the quote, McKinnon says in the House of Commons right now that Pierre Poilievre should support the quick passage of Bill C-14 and C-16. His quote, "It's time for us to put up or shut up on crime." I have been an advocate at this Justice Committee since day one about prioritizing community safety, the safety of Canadians, particularly victims. If the Prime Minister wants us to prioritize C-14, if the House Leader wants us to shut up or put up, I'm prepared, as my Conservative colleagues, also following up on a letter that our leader, Pierre Poilievre, wrote to the Prime Minister, setting out his expectations and priorities and his willingness to work with parliamentarians to prioritize what Canadians want. And what they want is to live in safe communities. I've said this repeatedly I'll keep saying this till I'm blue in the face. Community safety is not partisan. I don't care what your background, I don't care what your ideology is. Everyone wants to live and raise their families in a law and order community. And we've got an opportunity here as parliamentarians to give them exactly what they want. Therefore, I am moving the following dilatory motion, Mr. Chair, that the committee proceed to the consideration of Bill C-14, the Bail and Sentencing Reform Act, immediately.
Ms. Latanzio?
Yeah. If the motion is in order, but I would like to respond to the comments being made, that were made by Mr. Brock. So I'd like for you to rule on if the motion is in order.
Okay. Can you read your motion again, please, Mr. Brock?
That the committee proceed to the consideration of Bill C-14, the Bail and Sentencing Reform Act.
Okay, we'll put it to a vote.
Mr. Chair, before it goes to a vote.
Ms. Latanzio, go ahead, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for ceding the floor to me. First of all, thank you for
Point of order.
your intervention, Mr. Brock, and I also would like to take the opportunity
Sorry,
to
Ms.
wish...
Tanzio, Mr. Lawton's got a point.
As I understand, it's a dilatory motion, so there is to be no debate on it before we vote.
You're correct. I was just trying to be, I thought I'd give her a moment to, if it was a point of order type comment, but you're quite right. We have to put it to a vote. So we'll go to a vote.
Can we, Mr. Chair, can I ask for a suspension for a couple of minutes?
We'll suspend for a moment.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's when they suspended, just because we were about 5 to 10 minutes behind. And then just looking at it live right now, they are still suspended. Let me just check on... Yeah, they're still suspended. So we'll switch back over to public accounts again for a minute while they are suspended.
From this forms the basis of the work that's required to be done, especially if we at CSC are going to use them, because we want to ensure that we continue to keep our system secure. And so it matters to pay attention to the supply chain, as was mentioned earlier, and who are the potential contractors. And they have to still undergo a very rigorous process when it comes to cyber, when it comes to security, personnel security, especially if they're going to be working and employed by the communications security establishment.
Thank you. So every one of these 20,000 EVs will be evaluated for potential malware. Is this what I'm hearing?
This is not what I'm saying, Mr. Chair. What I am saying is that the question that was asked is whether or not we are assessing anything that's going to be used by the communication security establishment, and my answer to that is yes. We make sure to assess that. What I would add is that as part of the community that you see at this table, our jobs will be to ensure that we give our best advice to government when it comes to whatever systems they are going to use. The other thing I would add is that we work with critical infrastructure sectors, including the transportation sector, and they're the ones that will give the advice, I assume, to the government as to what is the best way to do the implementation of any EV vehicles. We have put advice out, as Mr. Gupta said earlier, with regards to connected devices, and we stand behind that advice, and we'll continue to learn and improve our advice as we get more and more informed. This is where Bill C-8 is really important, Mr. Chair, because one of the sectors in that is the transportation sector. And so if that bill passes, then we'll have a better understanding of what are the vulnerabilities. But in the meantime, we continue to work and build really great relationships with the transportation sector. And we have governance bodies what allows us to better understand what's going on there.
Thank you very much. That is the time. Up next, back to Ms. Yip. You have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you.
Oh, not the Yippers.
Say that Mr. Harper was not negotiating with President Trump. And Prime Minister Carney is a pragmatist, and he's able to see that our economy really needs to be diversified. Now go back to the report. And
what?
And I'd like to ask the question to Mr. Jones and Ms. Xavier. This is in regards to the AG's report indicating that there was not a comprehensive, up-to-date inventory of all government IT devices, and such as laptops, smartphones, and servers. And while Shared Services Canada began to work to address this in 2017, the project has not been completed and is expected to continue until at least 2027. Why is this important, and why is it taking so long?
Thank you for the question. I think it's important to note the complex environment that we operate in. And as I was discussing one of the last questions, which is the complexity of the number of departments that are involved. So a number of entities are responsible for managing their own inventory of goods. The other piece is when Shared Services was created, it was a mishmash of technology that got thrown together and handed over to this new agency saying, well, figure it out. And the agency didn't invest in its tooling at the beginning. There wasn't money to do that. It was really, the money was to just keep it running and hope that we could do that. And we managed to make some good progress in things like cyber defense with our colleagues at CSE. But that is why EVAS is back on track. We engaged with we had to work with the vendor. There are some things around needed to make sure that the software and the package that we bought were working securely. The pandemic did delay the procurement process, and at the same time, this is a space where the market is evolving very quickly. So we have shifted from a very static project management process that is long-term and very much into a very agile project delivery process where it is about minimum viable product, rolling out quickly to accelerate that, and that's why we've gone from 0 deployments to 35,000 desktops so far. It'll be at 87,000 desktops by the end of this year, and so starting to fill that gap. But there are over 100 departments and agencies that we have to work with. That is one of the complicating factors. The second piece for us is also how do we make sure that that information is available to those departments so they can see what their users have. And it is an environment that there's very few organizations in the world that work the way we do because of the vertical silos that, when Mr. Rochon was talking about the authorities, but then we've got this horizontal organization that does infrastructure. So there are things we had to work with the vendors on. Those have all been overcome now. So now it is about, not to trivialize this, lather, rinse, repeat. Get the deployment, get into the department, get it deployed, move to the next one, get it deployed, and do that on a priority basis to get that visibility.
I don't know that I have much more to add to what Scott Jones has already shared. We are working hand in glove, and we are, with regards to the recommendation that the OAG provided related to identifying a new platform. This is work we're doing in conjunction with our Treasury Board and Shared Services colleagues, and we will though, even without the platform, continue to at least provide a minimum viable product, as was mentioned by Scott. And as was mentioned by Dom earlier, the importance of continuing to build the relationships through tabletop exercises and is really where it matters. Because it doesn't matter what systems you have ultimately physically tracking these things if we're not doing a good job of ensuring that we're keeping that communication channel.
Okay, I'm going to switch back over.
Mr. Broussard. Yes.
Mr. Batter.
Yes.
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 No.
Okay, Mr. Brock's motion has been defeated.
Mr. Chair,
Tanzio?
I'd like to move a motion and seek unanimous consent to be able to move this motion. Would you like for me to read it?
Yes, please.
Before I read this motion, Mr. Chair, I would just like to make a few comments. We're supporting moving C-14 forward because it is fundamentally about keeping Canadians safe. This bill strengthens our bail system, holds repeat and violent offenders to account, and helps ensure that individuals who pose a real risk are not released back into the communities where they caused and have caused harm. C-14 responds directly to what Canadians have asked us to do. They support victims and gives communities peace of mind. As we move into this new sessions, Canadians also expect Parliament to rise above partisan lines and focus on delivering real results. That doesn't mean that we will always agree on everything, but it does mean that we should look for opportunities to work constructively where we can. Advancing C-14 is one of those opportunities, Mr. Chair, and it reflects shared concerns about safety and accountability. And it's also a chance for parliaments to show that it can act responsibly and decisively for people. This is what the Minister of Justice is seeking. This is what the Prime Minister has said this morning. At the same time, I also want to be clear that C-9 and C-16 are also important pieces of legislation. Our work on those bills continues, and they remain a priority. But when there is a clear opportunity to move forward on legislation such as C-14, that strengthens public safety and reinforces confidence in our justice system, and we should take it. This is about making Parliament work, focusing on the outcomes, focusing and delivering on our responsibility to Canadians. And that is exactly why we will always be in support of moving our own legislation, C-14. And with that, our motion reads as follows.
Ms. Latanzi, you'll need unanimous consent to move the motion first.
Sure.
Before you read the motion. Do we have unanimous consent from Ms. Latanzio to introduce her motion? Yes. Yes, okay, you have unanimous consent, so please move the
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the motion reads as follows, and I will read the English version, that the committee pause clause-by-clause consideration of C9 and act to amend the Criminal Code, hate propaganda, hate crime, and access to religious or cultural places, that the committee allocate 3 meetings to consideration of C14, and act to amend the Criminal Code, the Youth Criminal Justice Act, and the National Defense Act, bail and sentencing, beginning at its next meeting, Wednesday, that the committee not adjourn its 3rd meeting on C14 until clause-by-clause consideration of this bill is complete, and that the meeting following the completion of clause-by-clause on C14, the committee resume clause-by-clause consideration of C9.
Thank you, Ms. Latanzio. The motion has been circulated to all members in both official languages. Mr. Broussard?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No comment. We'll ask for a recorded vote on Ms. Latanzio's motion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Broussard. Mr. Lawton?
If I could just ask a clarifying question, is it 3 meetings then clause by clause, or 3 meetings and the 3rd resolves into clause by clause?
Please.
3 meetings, including clause by clause, and we will continue clause by clause until we finish the study on C14, or however long the meeting will take.
Mr. Broussard? All right, sorry, he's done, Mr. Lawton?
Thank you. I would like to move an amendment, and I'm sorry, we just got the motion, so I'm trying to do this in real time. I would propose amending that the committee allocate 3 meetings to consideration of C14 and act to amend the Criminal Code, the Youth Criminal Justice Act, and the National Defense Act, beginning at its next meeting. And I would amend that the Minister of Justice, that one of those meetings be dedicated to hearing testimony from the Minister of Justice.
I'm going to suggest we suspend for just 2 minutes so people can absorb what you just said. Okay.
Est-ce qu'on peut avoir une version écrite?
Could we get a written version of Ms. Latanzio's motion? I have it online, but can we get a printed copy?
I just suggested we suspend for a moment, but the members to my right don't see a need to do that. Mr. Fortin, are you okay with what Mr. Lawton just proposed?
Sorry, but I didn't catch exactly what he said, and that's why I asked for a paper motion that we can read and think about without. This is just verbal.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's suspend for a moment, and then give you an opportunity and get to absorb the motion. All right. We'll.
My Lord. Okay, let's go back to public accounts while we wait. Dun, 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 dun.
Systems. If you are using their networks, I'm sorry, Mr. Lemire, you will have another 2.5 minutes later. Mr. Lemire, I need to stop you now. I'm sorry. You will have another turn in a few minutes. Mr. Detel, for 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Let's continue the conversation on cars. I own a vehicle. Many of the people who are listening to us own vehicles, and I'm proud of the fact that I've been driving an electric vehicle for a while. But it's an older vehicle that I received without government grants. So now let's talk about electric vehicles, because the issues raised by Mr. Leclerc, Mr. Carrick, and Mr. Lemire are very important. Electric vehicles are primarily computers with an engine and with wheels. So they're like computers. So the heart of the issue is a computer. Have you already experienced cyber attacks regarding the current electric vehicles, be they built in South Korea, Japan, Europe, and so on? Before we go to China, maybe we could also get some from France, because they exist. Have there been threats cybersecurity threats targeting vehicles. I can't say whether or not there were specific attacks targeting electric vehicles. But based on all the information we have and the research we've done, as you have said, Mr. Chair, we do know that an electric vehicle is like a computer. We understand computers. Computers may have vulnerabilities. If they don't have a certain quantity of layers of security embedded, this adds to their vulnerability. We are not a regulatory agency, but we are going to be working hand in glove with Transport Canada and other sectors that will be implementing measures to make sure that the vehicles work appropriately. We are simply asking that we pay attention to anything that is connected, be it an electric vehicle or a computer, because when we talk about cybersecurity, something that we are experts in, yes, we will look into the vulnerabilities that exist. But to your knowledge, vehicles have been working with computers for 20 years. So have car owners been targets of cyber attacks simply because their vehicles could be tracked using surveillance cameras? Have they been targeted for spies, for espionage? I can't say that I'm able to answer your question with a categorical yes or no, because all threats in Canada are not automatically reported to the Cyber Center. There's no obligation to share all incidents with us. If there's incidents may have occurred targeting electrical vehicles, but maybe we have not been informed. We carry out general research. We work together with other international partners. We have a good idea of what can be done. Anything to add?
To the Cyber Center? So that's how we would measure.
About the cars.
Mais en même temps, at the same time, we have done workshops to understand the new technologies. Just like other software, there's vulnerabilities in all software, and comme vous avez dit, it's a computer on wheels, right? So there are vulnerabilities. We would expect them to be targeted. As soon as they're targeted, they will find vulnerabilities, and just like other software, they will continue to find them. So it's just a matter of time, I would say, right across. And we will continue to look at the technologies involved in vehicles and continue to add our advice and guidance. But it's something we have done. And for example, we did this at a Geek Week workshop with industry partners just to understand what those weaknesses are and how to formulate appropriate advice and guidance and to make sure that Canadians are aware. So we will continue to work on that, but the expectation would be layered software comes with vulnerabilities, comes with exploitation eventually, whether it's cyber criminals or states or whoever, but basically it's an opportunity just like other digital technologies.
30 secondes.
Merci beaucoup pour ces précisions.
Thank you for those clarifications. But you understand that in the world we live in today, with our vehicles, we leave traces everywhere. There are cameras. It's possible to identify someone. We can even track down a vehicle abroad. And these impacts affect all Canadians in their daily lives. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mr. Dertel.
You have the floor for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you. Just want to go back in my previous question. I was hoping to get to another. I talked about addressing the weak links. So on 2 occasions we heard the order in council impacting 44 departments and Schedule 3 with agencies being asked on a voluntary basis. So talking about weak links on such an important issue as cybersecurity, Canada's sovereignty in terms of national defence, this would fit into that, I would anticipate, in some degrees. What are your recommendations to us as members of the Public Accounts Committee in terms of going beyond a voluntary basis with the agencies and commissions of government? Hopefully they would take your advice on a voluntary basis and implement best standards, but there's no requirement for them to do so. So do you have advice to us, or are there things that we can recommend to ensure that they follow or are required to follow best practices as well?
So, first off, thank you for the question, and I'll mention that this is not a new issue. I believe it was flagged by the National Security Committee of Parliamentarians some 5 years ago now. So it's something that we've been discussing and looking at. And the reason why we haven't found a specific recommendation to resolve it is because it's complicated. Complicated for a couple of reasons. On the legislative front, if you want to add Schedule 3 entities that have to follow our policies, it becomes difficult for agents of Parliament, for Crown corporations or organizations that don't fall 100% under the federal government purview. Making them beholden to our policies is a difficult thing to do. So there's also reasons of national security. There are exemptions to our policies for very good reasons. And so sometimes the voluntary route is necessary. The other aspect that is complicated and that I mentioned as well is there's a cost associated with it. There are possibly some very small entities that have a very complicated way of managing their systems, or perhaps maybe even an antiquated way. Maybe they're using legacy systems. And so imposing our cybersecurity sensors and technology is going to come at a cost. And in particular, if we go into a small entity and all of a sudden turn on our sensors and find a whole bunch of things that are happening there, that's going to require resources to clean it up. Again, all of this has a significant cost, and it will take away from resources that are being applied to already the 100 departments and agencies that we're already vigilant in looking at, and it'll pull some of those resources towards some of these smaller entities and trying to resolve some of these, closing these gaps.
Okay, we're going to switch back over to the Justice Committee. There we go.
Mr. Fortin? No, I'm fine. I have it. But I do have a question, Mr. Chair. What we're voting on now is to authorize Ms. Latanzio to table her motion and not on the substance on the motion. Is that correct? Unless I'm wrong, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you need unanimous consent for Ms. Latanzio to table her motion. That's already been done. That's been done.
Okay, perfect. To introduce the motion, she tabled the motion. Okay. Mr. Lawton then proposed an amendment. So we're going to vote on Mr. Lawton's amendment. And then, assuming that passed, well, regardless, we'll then vote on Ms. Latanzio's
motion.
Okay. All right, so let's have a vote on Mr. Lawton's amendment. Do you want to read it out again, just so everybody's clear?
Yes, sure. If you give me just 1 second. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will go in English and in French. In English, it's inserted after the words "its next meeting," and it would read as follows: and that one of those meetings be the appearance of the Minister of Justice. End of the amendment. And in French, je vais le lire en français. Mais...
In French, the amendment would come after. And that at the meeting following the completion, so just before that, we would have the minister appear at the committee.
We'll go to a vote.
Okay. So on the amendment, Madame Latanzio?
Yes.
Monsieur Housefather?
Yes.
Madame Dillon?
Yes.
Mr. Chang?
Yes.
Mr. Brassard?
Oui.
Mr. Baber?
Yes.
Madame Cody?
Yes.
Mr. Lawton?
Yes.
Monsieur Fortin?
Oui.
10-0. Carried.
All right, motion carried. We'll now proceed to vote on the motion as amended.
Motion is amended.
Thank you, Mr. Broussard.
Thank you.
You can sit there anytime you want.
Sorry. Okay. Sur la motion telle qu'amendée.
On the motion as amended.
Mr. Housefather? Oui. Madame Dillon?
Yes.
Mr. Chang? Oui. Mr. Brassard?
Yes.
Mr. Baber?
Yes.
Madame Cody?
Yes.
Mr. Lawton?
Yes.
Mr. Fortin?
No.
Okay. Motion carried. So that means that on Wednesday of this week, we will proceed to deal with C14. As such, I will adjourn this meeting. Oh, sorry. Just any amendments that have to be submitted by Monday at Noon. Yeah, now we'll do the Gatwick.
Wait, what? Okay. So we'll be back Wednesday. And if I'm not mistaken, the first meeting is going to be with Fraser, if I interpreted that correctly. Did anybody else in chat? Did you guys hear that too? Because the amended motion by Lawton brought in Fraser. So Wednesday should be Fraser. Sorry, here. Let's go back to public accounts, though. Let's see if they're done there. They should still be on for another 20 minutes or so.
Fourth last round. I'm going to cut the minutes down so we don't go too much over it. I'm going to have a few questions here from the analysts at the end. So government and opposition members will have 4 minutes each. Mr. Keurig, you'll kick us off for 4 minutes, please.
Thank you. So I want to continue along with some questioning that I had earlier, but I want to address a few things. In this panel here, we've heard that alluded to that former Prime Minister Harper did trade with China and the canola. Now, canola, I understand, the former Prime Minister Harper, it did not have AI cyber threats like we do today, and 50,000 EV cars weren't in question coming into our country. So I want to address that. And EVs is a whole other topic. So today we're talking about cybersecurity, and that's what we're going to stick to. So I have something here from the National Cybersecurity Threat Assessment 2025-26, and it says the PRC conducts cyber operations against Canadian interests to serve high-level political and commercial objectives, including espionage, intellectual property theft, malignant influence, and transnational repression. Among our adversaries, the PRC cyber program's scale, tradecraft, and ambition in cyberspace are second to none. I find it concerning that we're fielding proper questions that Canadians want to know, and the government, representatives from the other side, are not. This is a real threat. At the end of the day, if the Prime Minister didn't go onto the world stage and tell the whole world he's going to do business with the Chinese Communist Party with open arms, we wouldn't be asking these questions today. So, on that, I have a direct question to the Chief, please. Is Canada ready to have an open arms approach to the Chinese Communist Party on a cyber security level? Or do we need to have a more heightened or robust or level up to keep Canada secure?
Say what I would have said even before this conversation that's being had today, that Canada is not immune to the threats of hostile state actors, cyber criminals, hacktivists. This is what our National Cyber Threat Assessment has stated.
I agree with you, ma'am, but in light of the Prime Minister going on a world stage and virtue signaling that China, the Chinese Communist Party is where we're going to move forward, things have changed. And I'm only speaking on behalf of the people who call into my office. It is a concern. There's lots of reports. Even the former Liberal government stated that we can't use Huawei phones and this, that, and identified, and you yourself have identified China as one of, amongst many. Surely we have to have a heightened sensitivity based on the direction that we're going. Yet, I'm not asking for concrete answers. I know this just happened in a week or two, but this has to be formulating in your minds to keep Canada safe. That's why I asked that question. This is a clear path forward to do business with the Chinese Communist Party, not only on canola and maybe they buy our LNG, which we can all get our heads around, but there are severe cybersecurity risks on what Chinese goods we're going to bring in or Chinese Communist Party goods we're going to bring in. So things are changing, and you are the expert, thank you, and I do recognize that, but as the calls I'm getting, things have changed from 2 weeks ago. Are we ready to deal with that, or what steps do we take to better deal with that?
I think needing to be ready as an institution, as a government, as a country is something we always need to be doing because the threats that we see are constantly emerging and pivoting. And so part of what we do at the Communication Security Establishment is prepare for that. We analyze that and we take it from what we learn from the foreign intelligence perspective as well as what we learn from the cyber defense perspective. And so the work that I do with my Treasury Board colleagues as well as my Shared Services colleague is really important to ensure that the Government of Canada systems continue to be prepared to defend against any threat. It is factual that we see the threats evolving. It's factual that we see that threat actors are pivoting and using artificial intelligence on a daily basis to be able to do what they need to do. But we see it from cyber criminals as well as state actors. And so the Defence of Canada is something that I am proud to be part of, being part of the defence portfolio, reporting to the Minister of Defence. And it is clear that in the work that we're doing in that posture with the investments we've been given, we're going to continue to modernize the IT systems, going to continue to ensure that our data is protected, leveraging information assurance mechanisms and crypt technology to be able to continue to ensure that whatever data we're housing will be protected.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid that is your time.
Thank you
Going
for your
back
answer.
to Ms. Tester-Dirksen, please, for 4 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I'm really enjoying the conversation. It's great. I do want to note that none of us is underplaying the security risks that we face as a country, and certainly all countries do in this changing landscape of technology. And I do want to address a concern that my colleague Ms. Cusey raised with respect to the use of my use of the word innocuous. What I was referring to when I look at the definition of the cybersecurity event, the actual definition is events do not necessarily mean a security breach. An example would be a user such as myself logging into the system at an unusual time. Of course, we have to treat all events as potential attacks. I understand that, but a large number do end up being innocuous, and I'm glad that you are hyper vigilant even to those innocuous events, making sure that we're properly protected. So thank you for that. I want to continue along my line of questioning. I was getting into the crown corporations that are not taking up the tools that are available to them, and I want to ask the Auditor General witnesses, if I could, that some of those crown corps, like I said, felt that using this was compromising their integrity to be independent. I would describe that as a type of mindset, and I'd like to know from the Auditor General's Department, do you find that this type of mindset is, for lack of a better word, harmful to our ability to properly protect ourselves in a cybersecurity context?
Thank you. I guess the best way I could answer this question is when it comes to independence, there are very few organizations that are as independent as the Office of the Auditor General, and we use these tools. In terms of crown corporations, I totally agree with my colleagues about the legislative structure. I would note that there are other options. In the Financial Administration Act, for example, ministers have the authority to direct crown corporations, and that's in Part 10 of the Financial Administration Act. So there might be other ways to get at this, but the factors that have been brought up as reasons why other organizations might not be willing to make a move, those are valid. They have to be overcome. Another example might be that you're using a third party to provide your IT services, and it's costly to have them engage with government organizations on things like this. So these are things that I think the government has to tackle. Your question about mindset, absolutely. I think every Canadian expects that government will do everything that it can. Government organizations across the board will do everything that they can to protect information and keep services going.
Okay, and I like your suggestions because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I didn't actually see any recommendations in the report about how we would entice these crown corporations to take up these tools.
We didn't make recommendations directly in the report because it is a question of policy. However, I think what we are talking about here is the importance of a clear picture across government organizations on what the threats are. I think the truth is, and my colleagues might be able to expand on this, but the truth is that the more they have visibility into what's happening at endpoints and also on networks of all organizations, the better they're equipped to help everyone.
Good. Okay. Excellent. So, and again, back to the Auditor General's team, I noticed in the preamble of your report that you note that an initiative to set up a cybersecurity collaboration platform and incident case management tool had not received funding. Can you expand on that a little bit?
I think I might have to ask one of my colleagues to expand on that, but I think the challenge at this point, or when we provided the report, was that the organization had to seek funding, and that hadn't been done yet. There has been some time that has passed since we finished our report, though. So.
Yeah, this was in the context of us moving forward with the procurement that I mentioned earlier. We're in the process of finalizing the contract for the security for the SIM, the Security Incident Event Management System, and that is, I don't want to. Procurement can always be unpredictable with challenges and some of the other pieces, but that is in its final stages right now. So to be able to proceed with that. So what was highlighted in the report has been moved on from, and on the EVAS side of things, that has been settled in. We're now at tens of thousands of deployments.
Thank you very much. Your time is up, I'm afraid. So, suivant, c'est Monsieur Lemire pour 2 minutes.
Mr. Lemire, you have 2 minutes. Thank you, Chair. As part of the new directive of digital sovereignty, Mr. Salomon, the minister in charge of AI, presents a framework that underscores the dangers if data is hosted abroad, for example, the United States. He talks about dependency on major organizations that manage data. I believe that here we have access to affordable renewable energy and we are able to host many servers, but clearly our strategy is not doing that. All our data is going to be hosted in the cloud. Maybe Mr. Jones is better positioned to answer me. How will the new strategy have an impact on the choices that are going to be made by the different departments in light of the famous Davos speech where the Prime Minister was skilled enough to avoid naming the United States and President Trump? Was he thinking about any vulnerabilities towards the United States? Mr. Trump may issue orders to Microsoft and disrupt all our computers that are connected to Microsoft, and this may interrupt all our work. Have you thought about the impacts that this could have? Yes, indeed. We have been thinking about that for many years because during the procurement process, we add security clauses, and there's also a security assessment process that is done by the communications security establishment when it comes to information protection. And we look into the qualifications of providers. We have also added other levels of security. For example, encryption for emails to protect sensitive information. We keep the key when we need to release information to providers. Lastly, it is important to ensure a balance between the capabilities of a system and the needs of a government and users. When it comes to technology, the only thing that is absolutely secure is a closed computer when it's not working. So we always have to measure the risks that we have to face. I think my colleague has something to add. Thank you very much.
Susie for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. In December 2022, it was revealed that the RCMP had awarded a contract for radio frequency equipment to Sinclair Technologies, a company owned by Hytera Communications. Hytera is a Chinese telecommunications firm partly owned by the Chinese government, and it was blacklisted by the U.S. Federal Communications Commission in 2021 as an unacceptable risk to national security. The Department of Public Safety confirmed that the RCMP did not seek a risk assessment from the CSC before awarding the contract. Can anyone clarify as to if the Cabinet has deemed it a requirement to consult CSC before federal departments engage in contract with foreign suppliers for products used by our security agencies?
Maybe I'll just weigh in here only because of some of my previous roles at the Department of Public Safety. I know that this would be something that would fall under the purview of the Investment Canada Act, not necessarily something that we would be discussing from a protection of Government of Canada systems and the cybersecurity of our systems. More so that there's a distinction to be made, I think, and a lot of the questions that have been asked today of us, Mr. Chair. When I mentioned that this is a team game, one of the members of our team isn't here, and that is public safety. They're very much responsible for cybersecurity outward facing. The team that you see before you here today is the team responsible for securing systems within the federal government. And as I think Mrs. Xavier mentioned earlier, Bill C-8 is a bill that is advocating for specific cyber hygiene to be rolled out and implemented in four critical infrastructure sectors, namely transportation, finance, telecommunications, and energy. And I think if that bill comes to pass, a lot of the issues that were asked of us today, I think, will be clarified because you'll have regulators in place that will impose cyber hygiene in these sectors in the private sector. So apologies if I didn't address the question specifically, but just wanted to point out that there's a distinction to be made between what's happening in society writ large here in Canada and cybersecurity for that, which falls under the purview of public safety, and protecting systems. Now, obviously, there are links between the two, but just wanted to point that out.
Mr. Jones, in April 2017, nearly 9 years ago, your organization began developing a security information and event management application, which was to be completed by March 2023. This application had an original budget of $72.7 million. However, this was doubled in 2021 to over $144 million. Further, the Auditor General found the product was put on hold in June 2024, pending approval of additional funding. What is the status of this application today? How many millions of dollars has SSC spent on this project? And the original budget was greatly underestimated. Why is that? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. There's a few elements here. This is the project that I was talking about. Contract award is forthcoming in the coming months. The number's low number of months. The second piece is it was that this was a space where the technology was evolving very quickly because of cybersecurity. And the process was designed for a standard government procurement of heavy specifications, award, delivery over a number of years, and then final delivery. That doesn't work in an agile environment with technology changing. That approach has been changed to be much more agile project delivery where you're looking at more smaller deliverables that grow over time. Thirdly, though, there were requirements that pushed the cost, and the primary cost that drove up was the requirement to hold data for a much longer time period than was necessary for critical cyber evaluations, and that is something that we worked on with our colleagues at CSE to say what is reasonable and needed. And sometimes what happens is it was overspecified. It's just a simple way of putting it, and so that was brought back down to bring it back into context. The money that is spent has only been on the procurement processes as we restarted this to prevent spending money on something that was overspecified and what we didn't need, but also something that conformed to today's cyber environment, not 2017. And that was the primary challenge, to restart this procurement and get it going. It is now back on track to deliver, but it's important to note that in the interim, the Government of Canada has always had a security incident event management system in place. It has been in place since prior to the creation of the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, and we continue to fund that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That is Ms. Kuzi's time. And finally, Ms. Yip, I understand you'll be sharing your time. You've got 4 minutes. I'll let you make the handover, or do you want me to?
Okay. Like I said, that was the last of the con round. We don't need to listen to the yippers for the last 5 minutes. We can just call it here. And yeah, like I said in chat a few times, we'll be live for question periods. We got about an hour, just a little over an hour to take a break. And Carney won't be in question period today. He's meeting with Doug Ford. So it'll be Pierre Poilievre versus a bunch of Carney's ministers. And yeah, that's it. I will put the link in chat again. And I need to go make a coffee. And I will see you guys shortly. Just a little over an hour, guys. Thanks for tuning in and watching. And I did say in chat, but thanks, Paula, for joining the coffee support. Thank you, A True Canadian, for gifting 5. Thank you, Raven, for being a member for 16 months. I can't believe it's been that long already. A True Canadian again for joining yourself. And then Carol, thank you so much, all you guys, for being a part of the club. Anyways, I will see you guys shortly, guys. Thanks for tuning in and watching. And here's the link in chat again for question period. See you guys soon. Bye-bye.